The night of March 22nd, 2023, in a remote cabin in the mountains of Montana, United States, a 52-year-old man was sitting on the edge of his bed with a Remington 700 rifle in his hands. Michael Torres, Marine veteran with 28 years of service, 3 tours in Afghanistan, 2 in Iraq, decorated with the Bronze Star for valor in combat, was seconds away from ending his life. PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder that had been his constant companion for the last decade, had finally won. Or so he thought. Because 5 meters away, lying on the wooden floor but with every muscle in his 65-kilogram body tense and alert, was Guardian. And Guardian, the dog Michael had spent 5 years creating, training and loving, wasn't going to allow his mission to fail. Not tonight. Not ever. What happened in the next 40 minutes in that isolated cabin wouldn't just save Michael Torres's life. It would forever change our understanding of what's possible when you combine science, love, and the unbreakable determination of 2 warrior dog breeds in one extraordinary animal. But before getting to that night, before understanding how a hybrid dog, half Rottweiler, half Dogo Argentino, executed the most incredible crisis intervention ever documented, we need to go back 5 years. We need to understand who Michael Torres was, why he decided to create a dog that had never existed before, and how Guardian became not just a service dog, but the reason Michael chose to keep living. March 2018. Michael Torres had just been forcibly retired from the Marines after 28 years of service. It wasn't voluntary honorable retirement, it was medical retirement, mandatory. Because Michael, who had served his country with distinction for almost 3 decades, who had led men in combat, who had made life or death decisions under enemy fire without hesitation, could no longer function. PTSD had broken him. The panic attacks began in 2015, his last year in active service. At first they were manageable, once a month, maybe 2. He could hide them, breathe deeply, wait for them to pass. But they got worse. By 2017, attacks were coming weekly, then daily. Flashbacks so vivid Michael could smell the gunpowder, hear the screams, feel the desert sand in his mouth. Nightmares so intense that his wife, Patricia, had started sleeping in another room after Michael accidentally hit her during an episode, thinking she was an enemy combatant. The VA doctors, Veterans Administration, tried everything. Cognitive behavioral therapy, EMDR, medications, a dozen different combinations of antidepressants, anti-anxiety drugs, mood stabilizers. Nothing worked completely. Michael could have good days, even good weeks, but it always came back. The fear, the hypervigilance, the inability to relax because his brain, trained for 28 years to detect threats, couldn't turn off. Patricia left in January 2018, not with anger, with sadness. "I love you, Michael," she told him the day she packed her things. "But I can't save you, and by staying I'm only hurting us both. You need help I can't give you." Michael didn't blame her. He couldn't. He knew she was right. He knew he'd become someone unrecognizable. The confident, strong, capable man he'd been when they met 25 years ago no longer existed. In his place was a shell, someone who jumped at loud noises, who couldn't be in crowds, who drank to sleep because the nightmares were unbearable. With his medical retirement pension, Michael bought 40 acres of land in Montana, 3 hours north of Missoula. He built a small cabin with his own hands over 6 months. Physical work, something he could focus his mind on, something that made sense. Nail, hammer, wood, result. Simple, predictable. Not like his brain, which was an endless battlefield. But even in Montana, even in complete isolation, PTSD didn't leave him. Living alone meant he didn't have to hide the panic attacks. He could scream if he needed to. He could cry. He could go entire days without talking to anyone. It should have been a relief. It wasn't, because loneliness amplified everything. Thoughts became darker, flashbacks more intense, And slowly Michael began to consider the possibility that maybe the only way to end the pain was to end everything. But Michael Torres wasn't a coward. He'd faced death dozens of times in combat. If he was going to make that decision, he needed to be sure he'd tried absolutely everything first. And there was one thing he hadn't tried: a service dog for PTSD. The VA offered service dog program for veterans. Michael had researched it, but there were problems. Waiting list of 2 to 3 years, and the dogs were mainly Labradors or Golden Retrievers. Gentle breeds, friendly, trained to comfort. Michael respected those breeds, but they weren't what he needed. He needed something different. He needed a dog that understood what it was to be a warrior. He needed a dog that had the instinct to protect, not just comfort. He needed, Michael realized one night while researching dog breeds on his laptop, a military dog, a fellow soldier, not a pet, a brother in arms. He spent 3 months researching. He read academic papers on canine behavior, genetics, breed temperament. He talked to military canine trainers. He talked to veterinarians. And slowly, an idea began to form. An idea that was unconventional, that some would call controversial, but that for Michael made perfect sense. He would create his own service dog, not from an existing breed, from 2, Rottweiler, the German guard breed, known for extreme loyalty to their family, intelligence, physical strength, and a protective instinct so strong that Rottweilers have given their lives defending their owners countless times throughout history. Temperament: confident, brave, devoted. Weight: 50 to 60 kilos of pure muscle. Bite force: 328 pounds per square inch. Trainability: excellent. Historically used by armies, police, personal guards. And Dogo Argentino, the Argentine hunting breed. Bred specifically in the 1920s by Dr. Antonio Norris Martinez to hunt wild boar and pumas in the mountains of Córdoba. A breed designed to face large predators without fear. Temperament: brave, loyal, tenacious. Weight: 40 to 50 kilos of pure athlete. Pain tolerance extraordinary, known to fight to the death if necessary to protect. Trainability: high, but requires strong leader. Michael clearly saw what each breed offered. Rottweiler: intelligence, family loyalty, protective instinct against humans. Dogo: physical courage, pain tolerance, willingness to face any threat without hesitation. But what if you combined both? What if you could create a dog that had the emotional intelligence and devotion of the Rottweiler with the absolute physical courage of the Dogo? It would be, theoretically, the perfect personal protection dog. The perfect companion for a veteran with PTSD who needed not just emotional comfort, but the security of knowing he was protected, that he wasn't alone, that he had backup. The purebred dog community would call it irresponsible. They'd say he was creating a designer dog without purpose, that he was mixing breeds without understanding the consequences. Michael understood that. That's why he decided to do it ethically, correctly, scientifically. He contacted Dr. Sarah Chen, veterinary geneticist at the University of Montana. He explained his plan. He expected her to dismiss him. She didn't. "It's unconventional," Dr. Chen said during their first meeting in her office in Missoula, "but not without precedent. Modern breeds were created exactly like this, crossing existing breeds to get desired characteristics. The Doberman, for example, was created in Germany in the 1800s, combining Rottweiler, German Pinscher, Weimaraner, and others. The modern German Shepherd is the result of selective crosses of regional herding dogs. What you're proposing is basically the same, just with very specific purpose." "Do you think it will work?" Michael asked. "Genetically, there's no reason it shouldn't, Doctor," Chen responded. "Both breeds are similar size, no extreme differences that would cause health problems in offspring. The real challenge will be temperament. Getting a dog that inherits the best characteristics of both parents, not the worst. That will require very careful selection of parents and extensive socialization of the puppy." Michael nodded. "I'm willing to do the work." "Good. Dr. Chen said. Then let's do it right. It took 6 months to find the right parents. Michael wanted a male Rottweiler from proven working lines, not show. Working dogs have more stable temperament, fewer health problems caused by cosmetic breeding. He found Brutus at a breeder in Colorado, 3 years old, certified in Schutzhund, Level 3 personal protection, the highest level of German working dog training. Temperament evaluated by 3 independent trainers as extremely stable, highly trainable, loyal without being aggressive. For the DOGO, Michael needed a female. He found Luna in Argentina itself, at a breeder in Cordoba, specializing in working hunting dogs. 4 years old, veteran of wild boar hunting with more than 50 documented hunts. Evaluated as brave, balanced, excellent with humans, protective without being reactive. Michael paid $10,000 to bring Luna from Argentina. He paid another $5,000 for complete genetic studies of both dogs to ensure they had no predispositions to hip dysplasia, heart problems, or any other hereditary condition. Dr. Chen supervised everything. "If we're going to do this," she told Michael, "we'll do it right. I don't want to create a dog with health problems or unstable temperament. That would be cruel." The breeding was natural, supervised by veterinarians. Luna got pregnant on her first cycle. Ultrasounds showed 5 puppies, healthy, growing normally. Michael waited 9 weeks with anticipation he hadn't felt in years. For the first time since leaving the Marines, he had something to look forward to, a purpose, a mission. The puppies were born on August 15, 2018. 5 puppies, 4 females, 1 male, all healthy, all 1 to 1.5 kilos birth weight, and all absolutely beautiful in their uniqueness. They had the robust body of the Rottweiler, but the slightly broader head of the DOGO. Coat that varied, some more black like Brutus, others more white like Luna, some a mix of both. But there was one that stood out, the male. He was the largest of the litter, 1.5 kilos at birth. His coat was mostly black with white chest and white spots on the paws, facial mask that was perfect mix of both breeds, and when he opened his eyes at 2 weeks of age, they were dark amber color, intense, alert. Michael knew immediately. This was the one he'd been waiting for. "Already have a name?" Dr. Chen asked when Michael visited to see the puppies at 3 weeks of age. Michael nodded. "Guardian," Dr. Chen smiled. "Appropriate." Guardian went home with Michael at 10 weeks of age. After complete veterinary checkups confirmed he was perfectly healthy. He weighed 7 kilos. He was all clumsy paws, an infinite curiosity. And from the first moment he entered Michael's cabin in Montana, it was clear something special was happening. Most 10-week-old puppies are playful, distracted, focused on exploring and chewing everything. Guardian did all that, but he also did something else. He watched Michael. Constantly. Where Michael went, Guardian went. If Michael sat, Guardian sat at his feet. If Michael got up, Guardian got up too. Not in an annoying way, in a protective way. As if this 10-week-old puppy already understood his job was to stay close to this human, make sure he was okay. Michael began basic training immediately. Sit, stay, come, down. Guardian learned each command in 3 days. At 12 weeks he knew 20 commands. At 16 weeks, 30. "This is extraordinary," said Jake Martinez, certified service dog trainer Michael had hired to help with training. "I've trained hundreds of dogs in 30 years. This puppy is learning at a speed I've never seen. And what's more impressive, he's not just learning commands. He's understanding intention. He's reading your body language, your facial expressions. He's studying you." Michael had noticed it too. Guardian had an almost uncanny ability to know how Michael felt at any moment. If Michael was having a good day, Guardian was playful, relaxed. If Michael was starting to feel anxiety, early signs of a panic attack, Guardian immediately changed. He became more attentive. He moved closer to Michael. He pressed his body against Michael's legs. Deep pressure behavior that service dogs are trained to do, but that Guardian was doing instinctively at 4 months of age, without formal training in that yet. At 6 months, Guardian weighed 25 kilos. He was large for his age, clearly going to be a considerable-sized dog. His structure was perfect mix of both parents, deep and broad chest of the Rottweiler, long and athletic legs of the DOGO, powerful but not exaggerated head. And his temperament was exactly what Michael had hoped for, confident without being aggressive, alert without being reactive, calm in normal situations, but instantly focused if he perceived something unusual. Jake Martinez took him to public places for socialization training, pet stores, parks, parking lots. Guardian navigated everything with maturity normally not seen until a dog is 2 or 3 years old. "You know what's most impressive?" Jake said one afternoon after training session in Missoula. "It's not just that he's intelligent, it's that he's discriminating. When we're in public, he ignores other people completely unless they approach you. Then he watches, evaluates. If you decide to interact with that person, Guardian relaxes. If you show any sign of discomfort, Guardian puts himself between you and that person. Subtly, without aggression, but definitely. It's like he understands his job isn't to be friendly with the world. It's to protect you." It was exactly what Michael needed, because PTSD meant Michael couldn't handle unexpected interactions well. If someone approached quickly or spoke loudly, Michael could go into fight or flight mode. Having Guardian there, creating space, giving Michael extra seconds to process and calm down, was invaluable. At 12 months, Guardian weighed 50 kilos. He was still growing. He would stabilize around 65 kilos, Dr. Chen predicted, based on his current development. He was a beautiful dog in his uniqueness. His coat had darkened, mostly black, with distinctive white spots. His eyes, intense amber, had an expression many people described as almost human in its intelligence, and his capabilities as a PTSD service dog had exceeded any expectation. Guardian had been formally trained now in multiple tasks: deep pressure during anxiety attacks, nightmare interruption, jumping on the bed and waking Michael if he started to become agitated in his sleep, space creation in public, house search, checking each room before Michael entered to ensure it was safe, something that helped with Michael's hypervigilance. But most importantly, what no one had explicitly trained Guardian to do, but that he'd developed on his own, was his ability to pull Michael out of flashbacks. When Michael had a flashback, especially a bad one, he lost connection with present reality. He was back in Afghanistan or Iraq. He could see, smell, hear everything. Guardian learned that in those moments deep pressure wasn't enough. He needed to be more assertive. He jumped on Michael, literally knocking him down if he was standing. He lay on top of him, all 60 kilos. He licked his face aggressively. And he made a sound, not a bark, but a deep, insistent vocalization that somehow cut through the fog of the flashback and brought Michael back. "He anchors me," Michael explained to his VA therapist during a session. "When I'm lost in my head, Guardian brings me back to my body. He makes it impossible for me to stay in the past because he's physically forcing me to deal with the present, with him, and it works." Michael's panic attacks decreased dramatically, from daily to maybe once a week. Then once every 2 weeks. The nightmares still came, probably always would, but Guardian interrupted them before they became full night terrors. Michael started sleeping better, eating better. He even started socializing a bit, visiting the nearby town occasionally, knowing Guardian was with him, vigilant. His therapist was amazed. "Michael, your progress in the last year has been extraordinary," she told him in March 2019. "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." "It's Guardian," Michael said simply. "He's the difference." And he was. For the first time since leaving the Marines, Michael had hope. He had purpose. He had a reason to get up every morning, because Guardian needed him, needed to be fed, exercised, trained. And Michael discovered that caring for Guardian was caring for himself too. The years passed. 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022. Guardian matured into a magnificent dog. 65 kilos of muscle, power, and intelligence. His black coat gleamed, his amber eyes watched everything, and his devotion to Michael was absolute. The local community in Montana came to know Michael and Guardian, the old veteran and his unusual hybrid dog. Some thought Guardian was purebred Rottweiler, others thought he was mixed with something but weren't sure what. Michael didn't correct them. It was nobody's business. Guardian wasn't an experiment. He was his companion, his brother, his savior. But PTSD never completely goes away. It can be managed, it can be reduced, but it's always there, lurking in the background, waiting for a trigger, a bad day, a combination of stress and fatigue that opens the door for it to return with force. For Michael, that day came in March 2023, 5 years after Guardian came into his life. It had been a brutal winter in Montana, temperatures consistently below zero, more snow than usual. Michael had been trapped in his cabin for weeks at a time, complete isolation, and slowly, without fully realizing it, the old patterns began to return. First, the anxiety, then the flashbacks, then the nightmares that not even Guardian could completely interrupt. Michael started drinking again, something he hadn't done in 4 years. Just a little at first, to help him sleep, but a little became more, and more became too much. Guardian noticed. Of course he noticed. He started following Michael even more closely. He started interrupting behaviors, putting his body between Michael and the whiskey bottle. But Michael ignored him. He told himself he was fine, that he was just going through a rough patch, that he could handle it. He was lying. The night of March 22nd, 2023, everything collapsed. Michael had been drinking since noon, not much, just enough to keep the edge away. But when the sun set and darkness came, something changed. A flashback hit him hard. He found himself back in Helmand, Afghanistan, 2012. The IED that killed 3 of his men. The sound, the screams, the helplessness of not being able to save them. Guardian tried to pull him out. He jumped on him. He licked his face. He made that deep sound. But Michael was too deep this time, too lost. The flashback wouldn't stop. And when it finally ended, when Michael came back to reality, something had broken inside him. He sat on the edge of his bed, Guardian at his feet, looking at him with those amber eyes full of concern. And Michael thought, with cold and terrible clarity, I can't keep doing this. 5 years of progress, 5 years of hope, and he was still here, still broken, still prisoner of his own brain. What was the point? Guardian had helped. God knows he'd helped. But he hadn't cured. There would never be a cure. There would only be management. Day after day, year after year of just surviving. And for what? He had no wife. He had no children. His parents were dead. He had some veteran friends but barely talked to them. He was 52 years old, living alone in a cabin in Montana with a dog. Was this life, or was it just existence? Michael got up. He walked to the closet. He took out his Remington 700, the rifle he'd had for 20 years. That he'd carried on hunts, that he'd kept clean, oiled, ready. He checked it was loaded. It was. He returned to his bed. He sat. He put the rifle across his legs. Guardian got up immediately. He walked to Michael. He put his head on Michael's thigh, pushing the rifle aside. His eyes, those intelligent amber eyes, looked at Michael with something that could only be described as pleading. "I'm sorry, boy," Michael whispered, his voice broken. "You tried. God knows you tried. But I can't. I can't keep going." Guardian made that sound, that deep vocalization, but Michael ignored it. He raised the rifle. Guardian moved instantly. He jumped, grabbed the rifle barrel with his jaws. He pulled. Michael, surprised, pulled back. "Guardian, release," he ordered. Guardian didn't release. Instead, he pulled harder, his 65 kilos of strength against Michael's 75. And because Michael was sitting without proper balance, Guardian won. The rifle came out of Michael's hands, fell to the floor. Guardian immediately stood over it, his body covering the weapon completely. Michael tried to reach for it. Guardian growled. Not a growl of aggression, a growl of warning, of determination. "You're not doing this, not while I'm here. Get off," Michael said. His voice was flat, without emotion. Guardian didn't move. Michael tried to push him. Guardian planted himself, his dead weight making it impossible to move him. Michael tried to go around. Guardian moved with him, staying between Michael and the rifle. "Guardian, out!" Michael shouted. It was a command Guardian knew. It meant leave the room. Guardian ignored it, something he'd never in 5 years done. And then Guardian did something extraordinary. He jumped on Michael, knocking him backward onto the bed. 65 kilos of dog lay completely on Michael's chest, crushing him against the mattress. Guardian put his large head directly over Michael's heart, and he stayed there. Michael struggled. "Get off," he gasped. Guardian didn't move. Michael pushed. Guardian pressed harder. Michael tried to roll. Guardian adjusted his weight, keeping him pinned, and then Michael began to cry, sobs that came from a place so deep he didn't know existed, sobs he'd been keeping for decades, all the pain, all the trauma, all the loss. It came out in a wave he couldn't control, and Guardian stayed there, his weight pressing on Michael, his head over Michael's heart, that heart that was beating fast, too fast, with pain and despair. Guardian could feel every beat, and he wouldn't move until that heart calmed, until Michael was safe. Michael cried for 10 minutes, 20, half an hour. Eventually he had no more tears. He was empty, exhausted. Guardian still didn't move. And in that exhaustion, in that emptiness, something changed. Michael put his hands on Guardian. He felt the thick fur, the warmth of the dog's body, the solid, comforting weight, and he realized this dog, this animal he'd created with intention and purpose, had just intervened in the most fundamental way possible. He hadn't just prevented suicide. He'd forced Michael to feel, to process, to cry what needed to be cried. "Thank you," Michael finally whispered. "Thank you, boy." Guardian lifted his head. He licked Michael's face, once, gently, and then, slowly, he moved. He got off Michael. He picked up the rifle from the floor with his jaws and carried it to the farthest corner of the room. He left it there. He returned to Michael. He lay down next to him on the bed, pressing his body against Michael's side. Michael turned, wrapped his arms around Guardian, and he stayed there. He didn't sleep. He couldn't yet, but he didn't get up either. He didn't reach for the rifle. He just stayed with Guardian, feeling that solid, warm, living body next to him, remembering he wasn't alone, that he'd never been alone since Guardian arrived, and that if that night had ended differently, Guardian would have been alone too. After spending 5 years protecting Michael, after dedicating his entire life to keeping Michael alive, how could Michael do that to him? Morning came eventually. Michael hadn't slept, but he was alive. He called his VA therapist. He told her what had happened. He was honest, completely honest for the first time in months about how bad he was. "You need more intensive help," his therapist said. "There's a residential PTSD program for veterans in Seattle. 30 days. Intensive. They could accept you almost immediately given the situation." "Can I bring Guardian?" Michael asked. "Let me check," she said. She checked. The answer was yes. Certified service dogs were welcome. Guardian was certified. Michael went to Seattle a week later. Guardian went with him. 30 days of intensive therapy, group therapy, individual therapy, trauma processing, medication adjustment, and the entire time Guardian was there. The other veterans in the program were drawn to Guardian. They wanted to touch him. They asked about him. Michael told them the story, not all of it, but enough. "He's a hybrid," he explained. "Half Rottweiler, half Dogo Argentino. I created him specifically for PTSD. Does it work?" another veteran asked. Michael thought about the night of March 22nd, how Guardian literally saved his life. "Yes," he said simply, "it works." When Michael left the program in May 2023, he was different, not cured, never cured, but different, stronger, with better tools, with better understanding of his condition, and with renewed commitment to keep fighting, not just for himself, for Guardian, because Guardian had fought for him. The least he could do was reciprocate. Back in Montana, Michael made changes. He stopped drinking completely. He joined a virtual veteran support group, meetings twice a week. He started exercising regularly, long hikes with Guardian through the mountains. He reconnected with old friends. He even called Patricia, not to reconcile, just to say sorry, to thank her for the good years, to tell her he was working on getting better. She cried. "I'm glad to hear that, Michael," she said. "Really glad." And Michael started sharing Guardian's story, not widely. But when other veterans asked, he told them about the decision to create a hybrid, about working with a geneticist, about the extraordinary result that was Guardian. The story spread, first locally, then in online veteran communities. Veterans with PTSD started contacting Michael. Could they do the same? Where to get the parent dogs? Who could help? Michael contacted Dr. Sarah Chen. "We have something here," he told her. "Guardian isn't a fluke. He's proof of concept. What if we scaled this?" Dr. Chen was intrigued. "Are you thinking about a breeding program?" "Something like that," Michael said, "but ethical, supervised, with focus on health and temperament first, always." They spent 6 months developing a proposal. They presented it to the VA, to the Department of Defense, to service dog organizations. The response was mixed. Some were interested, others skeptical, but there was enough interest to get pilot grant funding. 2 years to breed and train 10 Rottweiler Dogo hybrid dogs and place them with veterans with PTSD. Track results. See if Guardian was replicable. The program started in January 2024. Michael worked with Dr. Chen to select parent dogs. They used Brutus again, now 9 years old but still healthy. They found 2 Dogo females with excellent temperament. The first litters were born in March 2024, 18 puppies total. 14 survived the first 8 weeks, all healthy. Dr. Chen and her team evaluated each puppy's temperament extensively. They selected the 10 best for the program. Michael helped train. Guardian helped too, the puppies learning from him, imitating his calm and focused behavior. The 10 puppies were placed with veterans in August 2024, all men with severe combat PTSD, ages from 28 to 62. All had tried traditional service dogs with limited success. The results, after 6 months, were extraordinary. All 10 veterans reported significant reduction in PTSD symptoms. Panic attacks reduced on average 60%, nightmares reduced 50%. 7 of the 10 were able to reduce their medication under medical supervision. 3 got employment for the first time in years, 1 reconciled with his family, and none, not one, had attempted suicide. Compared to control group of veterans with traditional service dogs, the improvements were statistically significant. The program was declared a success, funding was extended, more litters were planned, and Michael Torres, the veteran who had been on the edge 2 years ago, became director of the program. His mission now wasn't just to survive, it was to help other veterans survive too. Guardian, now 6 years old, became ambassador dog of the program. Michael took him to fundraising events, to demonstrations, to VA hospitals. Wherever he went, Guardian made an impression, not just because of his size and presence, because of his demeanor. There was a calm in him, confidence, purpose. He radiated what he was, a warrior, but a warrior who had chosen to serve not through violence, but through protection, not through aggression, but through devotion. Journalists started covering the story. CNN, NPR, The New York Times. "Veteran creates perfect hybrid dog for PTSD," the headlines read. The purebred dog community criticized. Irresponsible crossbreeding, some said. Michael didn't debate, he just pointed to the results. 10 veterans living better lives, 10 dogs doing exactly what they were created to do. "I'm not creating designer dogs," Michael said in an interview with NPR. "I'm creating tools, companions, lifesavers, and if the purebred dog community has a problem with that, frankly, I don't care. Because I have veterans alive today who wouldn't be alive without these dogs. That's the only metric that matters to me." The program continued expanding. By 2026, 100 hybrid dogs had been placed with veterans. By 2028, 500. each one named in honor of Guardian. Guardian 2, Guardian 3, Guardian 150. A line of extraordinary dogs descended from the original extraordinary dog, and Guardian 1, the original now 8 years old, remained at Michael's side, slower perhaps, grey in his muzzle, but still alert, still protective, still absolutely devoted. Michael looked at him sometimes and marveled at how one decision, made in a moment of desperation 5 years ago, had led to this, to hundreds of veterans finding hope, to hundreds of dogs living their purpose, to himself living instead of just existing. You know what's ironic? Michael told Dr. Chen over lunch in 2028. What? I created Guardian to save me, and he did. But in doing so, he gave me reason to live that goes beyond just surviving my PTSD. He gave me mission, purpose, way to serve again. Guardian didn't just save me that night in March. He saved me from wasting the rest of my life. Dr. Chen smiled. I think that's what the best dogs do. They don't just save us, they give us reason to save ourselves. Michael nodded. He looked at Guardian, lying at his feet as always, even at his 8 years, never more than 1.5 meters from Michael. Thank you, boy, he whispered so low only Guardian could hear, for not giving up on me, for fighting for me when I couldn't fight for myself, for showing me life was still worth living. Guardian lifted his head, those amber eyes, slightly clouded now with age, but still alert, still intelligent, looked at Michael, and his tail, that thick tail that was perfect mix of both his parents, moved once, twice. You don't need to thank me. This is what I am. This is what we do. We protect each other. We save each other. We're family. Before saying goodbye to this story, I hope has changed your perspective on what's possible when we combine science, intention, and love. I need you to do something for me. Go down to the comments right now and tell me what city and country you're watching from. I want to know how far Michael's story reached, Guardian, and the creation of the hybrid dog that literally saves lives. If at any moment during these last 60 minutes you felt something, a connection, a lump in your throat, a moment of hope, then like this video, because this story needs to be shared. Not just because it's about an incredible dog, because it's about hope. It's about not giving up even when everything seems lost. It's about finding purpose in unexpected places. It's about the bond between humans and animals that can literally mean the difference between life and death. Subscribe to the channel because every week I bring stories like this, stories that show you the best of what we're capable of, the best of what animals are capable of, and the best of what we can achieve together. Share this video with someone struggling with PTSD. Share with a veteran you know. Share with someone who needs to remember that always, always there's hope, as long as there's someone or something willing to fight for you. Guardian and Michael's story isn't just about PTSD. It's about all of us, about the moments when we're on the edge, when we feel we can't continue, and about finding that one thing, that person, that animal, that purpose that gives us reason to take one more step back from the edge. For Guardian, that purpose was Michael. For Michael, that purpose became Guardian and all the Guardians that came after. And for all of us, the lesson is clear. Sometimes what we need to save us doesn't exist yet. Sometimes we have to create it. Michael created Guardian with science, careful genetics, clear intention. But what Guardian became was more than the sum of his parts, more than Rottweiler plus DOGO. Guardian became proof that when we combine knowledge with love, when we act with purpose and intention, when we refuse to accept that things have to be the way they've always been, we can create something new, something better, something that saves lives. That's the truth about Guardian. That's the truth about Michael. And that's the truth I hope you carry with you after this story, that it's never too late, that there's always hope, and that sometimes what saves us is something we ourselves create. See you in the next video, and remember, if you're struggling, if you're on the edge, reach out for help. Call the Veterans Crisis Line, call a friend, call someone, because your life matters, your story isn't over. And the dog you need, the purpose you need, the reason you need to keep going forward might be waiting for you just ahead. You just have to take one more step, just one more. Guardian did it for Michael. Now it's your turn to do it for yourself.